Hey guys, it's TRIZE here, and we're getting the most horsepower out of this naturally aspirated V8 engine. This is the second V engine in version 4.3 that I'm building for this video. So for the engine build, you start off by going to the top left portion of your screen to set the engine family year to the year of 2020. And after you select the V90° V8 engine, you must select for the block material, the engine block material, to the aluminum silicon heavy block material because of the good power density and the ability to upboard this engine as much as possible, which you'll see later. And under family capacity with the bore is you maximize the bore to 120 millimeters and the stroke, unlike my previous engine, set to a 91.2 millimeters, which gets the family engine capacity size to 8,252 cubic centimeters, or about 8.3 liters, rounding this up. And we're using dual overhead cams of 5 valves per cylinder, which is 40 total, made out of aluminum silicon, with the quality, basically the quality slider for everything, set to a +15. And right next to the quality slider with the Sandbox Tech Pool window here, you click on this to bring up the Sandbox Tech Pool. And under Engine Tech, where you see everything that it's set to a +5 by default, is to improve this to a +15 for everything. So improve the engine to a +15, the bottom end to a +15, top end +15, you can skip the aspiration because it's a naturally aspirated build, the fuel system at a 15, and lastly at a 15 for the exhaust. So after setting everything that you see here for the engine tech to this setting here to +15, click on Apply Changes and head over to the bottom end of the engine. So for the bottom end, by starting with the variant capacity, is you first, like I said about the upboring capabilities of version 4.3, aka the Ellsbury update, is you maximize the upboring part by adding 4 millimeters, which increase it to 124 millimeters to get the true engine size to 8,811 cubic centimeters, or about 8.8 liters. And for the crankshaft, we're going to be using a cross-plane crankshaft, seeing that it's a 90° type of engine configuration. We could use a flat plane, but since the RPM sources are different in a crossplane, we have to use a crossplane, so it'll be a crossplane billet steel crankshaft with the titanium con rods and some forged heavy pistons with the use of a harmonic damper, and maximize the counterweight slider all the way up to 100, which should add up to 75 pounds of the counterweight. This should drop when I increase the quality. Yes, now it's at 71.8 after applying the quality slider. The compression, it's pretty much the usual like my previous engine builds, 16.0 to 1 ratio for the compression, same thing, maximize the cam profile to 100, and again to a 59 for the springs and lifters with the VVT implemented for all cams with the RPM set to 8,400 RPM right here. And skip it over to turbocharged because it is naturally aspirated, so for the fuel system, it will be, like always, a direct injection throttle per cylinder race intake with the manifold size set up to a 93. And the fuel type we're going to be using, instead of unleaded super fuel, we're going to be using the most badass and most expensive and undesirable fuel except for drag strips, is nitromethane at 127 AKI. The ignition timing margin, which is right below the fuel type, is to advance this as much as possible by putting it all the way to the left, which is set to a -5.0. And the fuel mapping is you set this to a more lean setting at a 30. And finally, for the exhaust headers of this engine, so we're choosing a tubular racing header with the header size set to an 85. And we're going to be using some dual exhaust with the exhaust diameter set to 69.8 millimeters, which equals to 2.75 inches. And the usual, no cats and no buffers, and bring up the quality, which we've brought this engine's final horsepower and torque rating to 3,819.9 horsepower at 8,400 RPM, and a torque rating of 2,388.3 pounds-feet of torque at 8,400 RPM. So we've been following along with this series, seeing a little trend that we got going up in here, especially for the power graph with the power and torque. Is that the power and torque peaks at redline at 8,400 RPM, and with the con rod stress with the 96% of reliability reduction because it's about to explode. But fear not, if it works on automation, it should work at BeamNG Drive, because if I were to improve this to 8,500 RPM by setting this one click up, then the engine will break down because the con rods have failed due to excessive RPM, because technically they are rated up to 6,300 RPM. So kids, if you want this engine to work, set it to 8,400 RPM and call it a day. So for this part of the video, I'll give you here of this engine by doing a basic old pull test and try to do the fake gear shifts like I used to with version 4.2 by doing a manual start and play around with the manual like RPM target and go from there. So let's give a listen of this here powerful V8 engine right now. I just still can't get enough of how the dyno just rage quits at the end once you hit the stop button. So yeah, and overall, pretty powerful engine, so NASCAR, if you want to use this engine, hire me. So with this cross-plane crank V8 engine, it lacks some power compared to a flat plane due to the change in RPM stress that I've demonstrated earlier. Without it, this engine would have been at least like 15 horsepower more than it is right now. Regardless of this drawback, you still have a powerful, naturally aspirated engine that could be fit on a handful of cars in automation to be driven in BeamNG Drive, which is this example that you see right here. So anyways, that'll do it with Automation, the Car Company Tycoon games version 4.3. And for those who are interested in this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any videos like this in the future. So this is TRIZE Rising Up, and signing out.